Okay, so let me start. Good afternoon to all of you. I think maybe those who are from overseas, good evening. And of course, Graham, it will be good afternoon. So let me invite you for the CMA Sri Lanka Excellence in Integrated Reporting Awards Judges Report. Now, we were able to complete the awards, and today we are having the judges report. So we have a very eminent speakers and panelists who are present here. We have our Vice President of CMA, Mr. Hennayaka Bandara, who is also the Vice President of the South Asian Federation of Accountants. Then we have Mr. Professor Ho Yuki, who is the Chairman of the Panel of Judges. Then we have Professor Graham Terry, who will be doing the judges report. Then we have Associate Professor Lakmika Perra, who is with the Deakin University and closely involved with us. Professor Samanthi Senaratna, who is the Professor in Accounting, Department of Accounting of University of Sri Jayawardhanapura. And Mr. Suresh Kunratna, who is the Director and CFO of DEMOS, who have won the award maybe for the last 6 years. And I think I must also congratulate Suresh. He was there on the panel that
Have we lost Professor Watawala?
Yeah, appears to be.
Okay.
all the, sorry, there was recording. Sorry, there was some problem on the connection. So I must congratulate all the companies that took part in this competition. And the number was less, of course, due to the various reasons that were there. But we are very happy that they've been able to undertake this program, which was something of very exceptional maybe performance. So we had the awards, of course, the first three. Then we have, of course, Diesel and Motor Engineers, the National Development Bank, and the second runner-up of two companies, John Keels and National Savings Bank. Then the 10 best, the sector awards, special awards that were there. So we are very happy that we were able to do this. So we thought that as soon as we complete this, that we should have the awards, the judges report. And also we are happy that almost all of our judges are present here and that they will be able to make the various comments that they have. So from the CMA side, we are very happy that we've been able to conduct this. Also to play a very maybe major role on integrated reporting, because this year in 2020 we were the only professional accounting body that conducted the award ceremony despite the many problems that were faced. And in the final one, where we were not only able to do it online but also make it a hybrid event where the award winners were congratulated and were able to receive the awards. So definitely, even the interviews that we had it online. The judges marking and evaluations were all done in the same way. So I must thank also our evaluation committee. Those were all our members, local members who were there, and they played a very major role in providing the initial work. So definitely, I know that this will help us to improve. Plus, also we need to look at the new framework that have been put, which I have been told is not. There are no major changes, so that that could also be taken into account when preparing the accounts this time. So once again, I welcome everyone, and I will now invite the chairman of the panel of judges, Professor Ho Yu Ki, to say a few words before the presentation of the judges' report by Professor Graham Terry.
Thank you, Professor Watawala. Good afternoon, Professor Watawala, President of CMA of Sri Lanka, and ladies and gentlemen and distinguished guests. It is my honor to say a few words before we invite Professor Graham Terry to give us the report on the CMA Excellence in Integrated Reporting Award 2020. Last year's competition was the 6th annual competition since the competition was inaugurated in 2015. Despite the pandemic, the competition continued to attract companies to submit their annual reports for the competition. The competition is a pioneering effort to recognize companies with annual reports prepared in accordance to the integrated reporting framework. The objective of the competition has been and continue to be to promote Sri Lankan organizations, both listed and unlisted, and state institutions to undertake integrated reporting, which will be beneficial to the investors and stakeholders. One of the major post-competition events is to provide education and training to companies in Sri Lanka on the greater use and application of the IR framework, particularly from some of the observations we have in the competition. For this, Professor Graham Terry has been most instrumental, and we want to thank him for his excellent work year after year. The panel has seen significant progressions and improvements in the submitted annual reports since 2015. We believe this will be a distinctive feature of the companies on the Colombo Stock Exchange. Therefore, without much ado, I will hand the time to the moderator to introduce Professor Graham Terry, and to conduct this report for us. May I wish you a very fruitful seminar. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Professor.
Just 1 minute, Graham. I just need to do a few formalities. So let me thank Professor Ho for that judges, maybe as a judge, the chairman, that his remarks that he made. And you all know that he is the Associate Provost, Skills, Future and Staff Development of Singapore Institute of Technology, and been closely involved with us, a former professor in accounting of the National University of Singapore, which is, I think, known to all our Sri Lankans, and playing a very major role. And he's also on our advisory council. So we are very pleased, and thanks for that introduction. Then Professor Graham Terry, now he's also been involved with us as like similar to Professor Ho for the last 6 years. And he's someone who helped us initially to prepare the mark plan for the marking scheme for the awards. Now he is an integrated reporting advisor and an ambassador for the International Integrated Reporting Council. He's a professor of practice at the University of Johannesburg, where he is coordinating courses and research on integrated reporting and thinking. He's a chartered accountant from South Africa, worked for the South African Institute of Chartered Accountants for maybe 3 decades or 30 years, serving in various capacities, including the vice presidency. So he's someone who's been very, very involved in this, and also in the integrated reporting area, where he's done quite a lot of work, both with IIRC as well as the South African Integrated Reporting Council. So I know that he has put in a great deal of work in the preparation of the report. At the competition 2, That day he gave a summary of it, but today he is going through the details, and it is really a very detailed case study of how one could win an award. Really, maybe they can improve, because what we have seen is during the last 6 years, the presentation of integrated reporting has greatly improved. So with that, which is, I think, for which all our judges and Professor Graham has played the lead role. So may I now invite Professor Graham Terry to do the presentation of the judges' report.
Thanks very much, Professor Watawala, and I greet you and all the distinguished guests and everybody else. Let me just set my screen up so that we can go forward. Okay, is that visible?
No,
that
we
work?
can't see. No, I can't see. We can't see.
You can't see. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Let me...
Okay, now fine.
Okay, great. Thank you. Sorry about that.
That's fine. That's now fine. Yeah. Okay.
Right. Okay, thank you very much. Sorry about that. And thank you to my colleagues, the judges, for their input for this report as well. So what I aim to do today is just firstly to highlight the examples of good practices that we saw during the marking process. We would like to identify a few areas where improvements can be made, and really to encourage ongoing enhancements to future reports. Part of this is for the judges to commend all the organizations that submitted entries, and we all know it was a very difficult year, so there were fewer reports this year, but really it was great that organizations did take the time to submit their reports. So it's great to see, and also congratulations to all the award winners. It was a very difficult year, and I don't have to describe the problems with coronavirus and, of course, also the economic fallout that occurred as a result of that. But I think one really interesting thing has been the fact that organizations that have adopted integrated thinking seem to have been better prepared and more agile in dealing with the virus and the economic fallout. And we've certainly seen that in South Africa, and organizations have come to us and said it really has helped them prepare and adjust their business models and so on wherever necessary. So just the headlines of the key improvements for 2020. Firstly, on average, integrated reports were 20% shorter, and that's a significant step forward. There's still a number of areas where improvements can be made, but that is really very encouraging to see, and we encourage organizations to continue with looking into how they can reduce the size of their reports. Then much improved integration and connectivity, and you will see that as we go through these slides, that there's been a much greater focus on integration and connectivity. Also, better future orientation, more organizations looking at the short, medium, and long term, and less emphasis on compliance-based governance, more of a focus on how the governance process supports value creation. So those were the key headlines for the year. The program for today is really to look firstly at the content elements, then the guiding principles, and finally the fundamental concepts. So starting with the content elements, as we know, there are 8 areas that need to be covered. You don't have to present them in that order. Indeed, you don't even have to present those particular headings, but you should try to cover all of those areas in the report. The first area as regards to content is organization overview and external environment. Now, the framework poses a question in regard to each of these content elements, and the objective is for the organization to try and answer that question in the presentation of its integrated report. So the question here is, what does the organization do, and what are the circumstances under which it operates? So the first one here, looking at what the organization does. And the first example is taken from People's Leasing and Finance. Most organizations did this well. It usually comes at the beginning of the report, just setting out information about the organization. So here we have the vision and mission, brand strength, looking at their key differentiators, looking at the group structure, highlights from the subsidiaries below that, and then information about branches, employees, and the products that the organization puts out. So just an overview, so that when you enter the integrated report, you have some idea about what the organization does. Now, an interesting development in the last few years has been towards companies presenting purpose statements. Now, the purpose statement is really the reason why the organization exists. The purpose statement is the driving force in decision-making, reflecting the organization's core values. And this year it has been used by several organizations as a North Star for adapting their business models during the COVID-19 pandemic. It gives them direction. For example, many organizations have not been able to implement their strategy as they would want to. In some cases, they couldn't even implement their business models. So going back to that purpose statement gives them some direction on how they need to adapt their business model or strategy to do that. Now, there are some organizations in Sri Lanka that produced or put forward a purpose statement. One was Oxford College of Business, and their purpose is to empower people to progress in their lives through learning, enabling them to acquire the knowledge and skills to thrive in an ever-changing and increasingly connected corporate world. Now, you can see from that, it goes way beyond the vision and mission and the profitability of the organization, but it's the reason why that organization exists. Now, there were others. DEMA was one, and I'll show you their purpose towards the end of my presentation. But the other point to make is that we know that there's been a revised framework put out by the International Integrated Reporting Council. And if you look at that, you'll see that there's a recommendation in there that organizations should present or make a purpose statement. Now, the second half of this first content element is the external environment. And I think we all know what is required there. Organizations scan the external environment using a pestle analysis, look at what their competitors are doing, etc. But we've always stressed that organizations really need to do this very diligently. And it's not just a superficial thing that some clerk down the passage does it. It's something that the board and the executive management should get involved in both looking at what these issues are and also analyzing them and understanding what the impact would be for their organizations. Now, an interesting thing is that in the past, we've also highlighted that some organizations seem to use the GRI framework for this purpose. Not that there's any problem with the GRI framework. I think it's an excellent framework and very useful, but one needs to understand, the organization needs to understand that it's not comprehensive. And interesting, this year, People's Insurance have come out and said, in improving the relevance and meaningfulness of our report, this year we have broadened the scope of the material topics, looking beyond the topics prescribed in the GRI framework to include factors that are more specific to our business industry landscape and supply chain. So that's an interesting development and is in line with what we've been saying in recent years in our report back. So that's great to see, I think, but the important thing is doing a diligent review. Now, from the point of view of the integrated report, you don't want to see a full summary of all the things that the organization has done, has reviewed, etc. What you want to see are those key things that affect the value creation in the organization over the short, medium, and long term. Now, DEMO did this. As we know, DEMO had a very good report. So yeah, you can see the issues, how they're measured, and then the impact, excuse me, on DEMO. You only want to see those 7 or 8 or 10 items that are likely to affect the value creation in the short, medium, and long term. Another example was union assurance, looking at issues that affect the future trends for the industry, aging population, rising life expectancy, urbanization, all of these things affecting opportunities for the organization. So things that are really important to the future of the organization. Now, the next content element is governance. And the question here is, how does the organization's governance structure support its ability to create value in the short, medium, and long term? And as I said earlier on, we've seen some improvements in this area. And the key thing here is how the structure supports the ability to create value. Now, the framework, I just want to go through a few things that the framework actually says in regard to this, and we'll hopefully look out for these as we go through the slides. Firstly, the organization's leadership structure, including the skills and diversity. And this is not pages and pages of photographs and CVs and so on. It's the summarized or the collective skills and diversity, etc., of the board. So one can understand what the collective value of that board is. Then specific processes used to make strategic decisions and to establish and monitor the culture of the organization, particular actions taken to influence and monitor the strategic direction of the organization and its approach to risk management, how the organization's culture, ethics, and values are reflected in the use of and effects on the capitals, including its relationship with stakeholders, the responsibility those charged with governance take for promoting and enabling innovation. And as we know, innovation is absolutely critical for organizations these days. And so therefore, it's something that the board should be involved in. Whether the organization is implementing governance practices that exceed legal requirements, and how remuneration and incentives are linked to value creation in the short, medium, and long term. So if an organization is really concerned about value creation, then it should link its remuneration to that value creation and not just focus on profitability. So let's have a look at a few examples. I'll go firstly to DEMO, and I think DEMO did this really well. They started off by contextualizing how the board operates. So talking about a structure that connects performance with purpose. I'm just going to read the introduction here. Enterprise governance at DEMO is designed to align the purpose and value creation model to seize market opportunities and to create sustainable value. In this spirit, the board provides leadership to drive integrated thinking and formulate requisite strategies to direct the group to its desired aspiration. So that's nicely contextualizing it. If you cast your eyes down, you'll see on the left side there the mandatory compliance, but on the right-hand side, we have the voluntary adherence, and that was one of the areas that the framework suggests organizations should show. And then driving value creation. Value creation is optimized when strategy, risks, and performance are carefully integrated and appropriately balanced. At DEMO, the board drives the value creation process through effective management of capitals, value creation activities, impacts, and risks, and connecting all those elements together to create a sound value creation model. So really giving some good insight as to how the board operates. And another thing that I just wanted to highlight here is many organizations still do give their compliance with the corporate governance code. in their integrated report, sometimes taking 4, 5, 6 pages of the report. DEMO puts it on the website where it is best displayed and doesn't take up space within the actual report. And I see that other companies are following that, and that's really great to see. Then, as regards remuneration policy, also going to DEMO, the remuneration policy is designed to reward, motivate, and retain the company executive team with market competitive remuneration and benefits to support the continued success of the business and creation of value as per the business model. Goes on to say the remuneration packages, which are linked to individual performance, are aligned with the company's short and long-term strategy. So really good reporting and understanding of how these things work within DEMO. Another organization that did this very well was Aiken Spence. You can see on the left-hand side there in that box, the composition of the board. So giving that summarized or collective of the board, looking at diversity, age, the expertise, etc. of the board, which is really helpful. When you look at this, you can see, okay, I can understand what that collective, what the collective skills of the board are. Now, something I just want to point out, and quite interesting, if you look at the gender diversity here, and this is something that I've seen in many companies in Sri Lanka, is that there's a heavy male dominance here. And I think organizations need to look at this. I think that organizations are losing out because women bring so much expertise to organizations. And if you look around the world at boards in South Africa, and I know in Australia it's happening as well, the UK, Europe, and more women are coming onto boards, and they really do bring some very valuable skills to that board. So as you can see here, male dominance, and hopefully next year we will see more women on boards. But let me move on. The key areas that the board focused on this year, you can see their strategy, governance, etc. And then on the right-hand side, how the board creates value through governance. And I'm just going to highlight 2 areas here. One is long-term sustainable stakeholder relationships, one where the board is involved, which is great. And the second one, promoting innovation within the organization. Again, nice to see that the board is actually involved in those particular areas. The next area is business model. So the question is, what is the organization's business model? Now, we've talked about the revised framework, and I just want to highlight here how the diagram of the framework has changed slightly. The objective of this exercise around the business model was to make it clearer what the difference is between outputs and outcomes, because many organizations around the world don't seem to understand that difference. And I must say that a lot of organizations in Sri Lanka also do not understand the difference. The change to this diagram is basically to show that outcomes flow not only from the outputs, but also from business activities. So, for example, if the organization is building new plant and machinery, etc., that would be something that is flowed from the business activity rather than from the output. That would then be enhancing the manufactured capital. But take a look at this, and I think that CMA is going to be running a course or a webinar on the changes that have taken place. So I invite you to look at the revised framework and take it into account when you produce your new integrated reports. This year, we had a really good discussion on business model from Commercial Bank. Starting with the inputs, you can see there, nice and concise. Then the activities in the middle, also nicely put. The outputs, which are the products and services that are put out by the organization, which is in line with the framework and which many organizations seem to not to understand. And then finally, the outcomes. And these are the effects on the capitals that are then not on stakeholders, as some organizations seem to to imply. The business model is about how the organization creates value, how the organization creates value. And so therefore you want to see what the impact is on the capitals. Yes, you need to show how you're creating value for your stakeholders, but that's not the business model per se. Now, if you turn over the page of Commercial Bank, on the right-hand side here, you can see how they've expanded on the impact on their capitals. But on the left-hand side, also extremely important, is a narrative description of how that organization creates value and how it makes money through its financial intermediation and maturity transformation. This is really important. And I feel very strongly that organizations need to describe how they make their money, because if they don't make money, they're not going to exist. And it's critical to understanding the business model. So it's the classical understanding of the business model. Then moving on to risks and opportunities. What are the specific risks and opportunities that affect the organization's ability to create value over the short, medium, and long term? And how is the organization dealing with them? Aiken Spence again here, looking at some of the issues. Firstly, impact of climate change, looking at the impact and likelihood over the periods 2018 and 2019, and then interest rate. And then what are the mitigation strategies that the organization is taking? DEMO also does this well, and you can see here these are the first two risks, and both of them relate to COVID-19. So you can see that DEMO prepared their report after COVID-19 had become an issue. So here two of their key risks: the impact on value creation, and what are the mitigation steps that they're taking. They also show the change in risk profile over time, but really good reporting. Then moving on to strategy and resource allocation. And sorry, just going back to risk, I just want to say that we will see more examples of risk as we go through looking at other areas, and that will be showing how organizations are integrating information and how they're getting connection between the various elements, content elements of their reports. So strategy and resource allocation: where does the organization want to go? And how does it intend to get there? Bank of Ceylon did this really nicely. Here, if you look at the top left-hand corner, there's SWOT analysis, where they are now, then where they want to be, what are those strategic objectives going into the future, and then how we plan to get there. Looking here at the strategic drivers, the initiatives in progress in 2019, so beginning to look at performance, and then what are the resources that they've employed in regard to those strategies, and finally, what capital trade-offs are taking place. So you can see the integration starting here, and this is really good reporting coming from Bank of Ceylon. And then National Savings Bank also did an excellent report. And here we can see on the left-hand side the long-term strategies. So organizations are looking more towards the long-term than they used to. Great reporting. They also presented a strategy map, and I'm a great fan of strategy maps. When I ran an organization, I used to use strategy maps because it really does help you to understand how the different strategies fit together, and also with the resources that you need to implement them. So on the left-hand side, we have the long-term strategies, and then moving to the right, we have here the short-term strategies to implement those long-term objectives. And then we also have the enablers, strategic enablers, so technology, risk management, etc., are things that enable this implementation of their strategy. And then beginning with the performance, how did they do in 2019? And then if you want more information, more detail, then you can go to those pages connecting with those. So really good information here, and looking at short, medium, and long term. So encourage all organizations to look at this kind of disclosure. Also with National Savings Bank, they then look at the commitment to sustainability, how they're building the UN Sustainable Development Goals into their strategy and so on. And I must say that I think Sri Lanka is a leader in this area, how the organizations are embedding the Sustainable Development Goals into their strategies. So really nice to see. Then performance, to what extent has the organization achieved its strategic objectives for the period? And what are its outcomes in terms of the effects on the capital? So let's have a look at strategic objectives firstly. Hatton National Bank, this is really good in the way that they've brought together a lot of information, and we'll be seeing this slide a few times as we go through today. On the left-hand side here, we have what their strategic objectives are. Then going across the top, the key performance indicators that they use to track it, their planned deliverables, what are they expecting to achieve, the challenges, so they're beginning to look at outlook here, what are the challenges to implement this strategy, then what was delivered in 2019, so that's their performance, and what was what scores for their key performance indicators. Then what are they planning for 2020? So beginning to look to the future and then linking it to risk. So there we're including risk in this chart as well, and also a link to remuneration. So really, really useful disclosure and helpful in understanding how this organization creates value. Then DEMO looking here at the capitals. Now DEMO doesn't necessarily define its capitals in the classical sense. They use their own terminology, which is not a problem at all. In my view, it's better to use the terminology used in the organization. Then looking at value created for the organization firstly, value created for stakeholders, shareholders and other stakeholders, and then how they've integrated that with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And I just want to highlight one area here as well. The average customer satisfaction index is disclosed here. And this is something that we're beginning to see in Sri Lankan companies where the organizations are beginning to show things like customer satisfaction index or employee satisfaction index. In the past, what we saw was organizations saying, this is what we do for our employees, this is what we do for our customers, but there was no recognition of how it was being received. And so information about satisfaction indexes and so on gives a lot of insight to the reader of the report about how successful the organization is being. Now with DEMO, the last slide will show you the quality of relationships with stakeholders, and I think they use things like the Net Promoter Score and so on to actually generate these numbers. So then John Keels also produced a really nice report just looking at performance, and performance should be past performance, current performance, and what do we expect in the future. And here looking at two areas, water reduction and energy reduction, looking at performance as against goals. So that's really nice reporting, and we'd like to see a lot more of this from organizations going into the future. Then outlook. Now, it's fine to have your strategy, but if there's no indication from the board or from the executive team about the challenges that the organization might face in implementing strategy, it's not terribly helpful. So an integrated report should answer the question, what challenges and uncertainties is the organization likely to encounter in pursuing its strategy, and what are the potential implications for its business model and future performance. Now, the different ways in which this happens, access engineering, this is the report by the Managing Director and Chief Operating Officer. They've done it in that report, and they describe the different areas that the organization is involved in and what the outlook is. Then John Keels, and they do this really nicely, looking at strategy and outlook, linking those two, looking at the short term and then medium to long term. So on the left-hand side, we have the hotel change, what we're expecting there. On the right-hand side, life assurance and banking, also short term, medium term, and long term. Really useful, really nice, and hopefully more organizations will follow this kind of reporting in future. Coming back to Hatton National Bank, already I've highlighted there, and you can see the challenges to the implementation of their strategy, which I mentioned a little bit earlier on. I won't repeat that now. Then the last content item is the basis of preparation and presentation. These are the assumptions that the organization makes in the presentation. An integrated report should answer the question, how does the organization determine what matters to include in the integrated report, and how are such matters quantified or evaluated? This usually comes early on in the report. We've taken an example from Lanka Life and just highlighting some of the areas. Lanka does it nicely. There's over 3 pages, looking at the scope and boundary, looking at how materiality is defined, what are the reporting frameworks that have been used, what external assurance has been obtained, and how has the report been approved. So this is just a quick overview of that. And then John Keels, again, also looking at frameworks, the scope and boundary, how they've determined materiality, and then information verification and quality assurance. What have they done to ensure that? So again, useful, helpful, insightful. So we've looked at the content elements. Now let us look at the guiding principles. And there are 7 of those. These guiding principles show the organization what to include, or help the organization decide what to include, what to leave out, and how to present it. So starting with strategic focus and future orientation, the framework says an integrated report should provide insight into the organization's strategy and how it relates to the organization's ability to create value in the short, medium, and long term, and to its use of and effects on the capitals. Now, we've already seen a number of examples that embody this principle about the strategic focus and future orientation. So I'm just going to show you one more, People's Insurance. Here, looking at the short-term goal. This is their strategy and resource allocation. Looking at the short-term goal and the medium to long-term goal. So I think that's certainly one of the areas that we've seen that has improved quite dramatically this year. Then the second principle is connectivity of information. An integrated report should show the holistic picture of the combination, interrelatedness, and dependencies between the factors that affect the organization's ability to create value over time. And again, we've seen, I think, massive strides this year in achieving connectivity in reports. We've seen the use of symbols or icons by many organizations. We've seen cross-referencing, and we've seen many other tools that organizations use. And each year, organizations seem to come up with better tools. We've seen some infographics, which we'll see later on. And then looking to the right, there's DEMA. And I think one of the best ways of getting this integration is how the content flows through the report. And DEMA does that extremely well, connecting, for example, this is governance, but connecting it with stakeholders, connecting it with their strategy, performance, etc. And if you look at the way that report is put together, that to me is the best way of getting the connectivity within the report. Hatton National Bank using here these charts showing information in columns and so on, really nicely put together, and it gives you a great deal of context and connectivity. So really nice. And then stakeholder relationships. An integrated report should provide insight into the nature and quality of the organization's relationships with its key stakeholders, including how and to what extent the organization understands, takes into account, and responds to their legitimate needs and interests. National Savings Bank did this really well, looking at 2 of their main stakeholders, employees and customers, starting off with why they are important, and then the priorities, what have they been discussing, and then looking at what are the material issues that flow out of this, and also looking at so let me go back on that, looking at their response and also connecting with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. But what I really want to highlight as well is looking at the quality of the relationship, because that's what's called for And that gives a lot of insight to the reader of the report about the organization. And I've talked a little bit about this already, but here we have employees and customers, and you can see the quality of the relationship on a 5-point scale, where 1 is awful and 5 is brilliant. They have decided, or they have evaluated, that their relationship with employees is a 4 out of 5 and customers a 3 out of 5. Now that's not perfect. So it means that they need to do work, but as the reader, you can understand what the issues are and what they're doing about it. And that's really useful disclosure. And I think it's also honesty by the organization. It gives some credibility to the report. It's not a report that is saying that everything is perfect in our organization. And I think that the reader gains a respect for the organization when they disclose information of this nature. And yes, not everything is perfect, and one doesn't expect it to be perfect because things are changing all the time. So this is really good reporting. Then materiality. An integrated report should disclose information about matters that substantively affect the organization's ability to create value over the short, medium, and long term. Now, it's important to focus on that over the short, medium, and long term, because when you're preparing financial information, you're looking more at the short term, but there could be some crucial things in the medium to long term that affect value creation. So you need to look at materiality over the short, medium, and long term. National Development Bank did this nicely, defining the materiality, showing the process used, and then identifying what those material areas are. And they should link in with the, to some extent, obviously with stakeholders, but also with the external environment. Now, an important element of materiality is the reporting boundary. And I've taken this from Bank of Ceylon. Again, it's not an area that is well done in Sri Lanka. Many organizations have very vague descriptions of the reporting boundary. And we're not sure why this is, because it's not a sensitive area per se, but a vague description of the reporting boundary confuses the reader because you don't know what has actually been taken into account. And Bank of Ceylon here showing their reporting boundary with a nice diagram looking at their non-financial reporting boundary, their financial reporting boundary, which includes the parent entities, subsidiaries, and associates, and then the integrated reporting boundary, taking into account internal and external stakeholders, operating landscape, risks and opportunities, etc. So things from the supply chain, you know, okay, they've included those kinds of risks and giving you a much better picture of what they have taken into account and what they've not taken into account. In conciseness, an integrated report should be concise. And I've said earlier that we've seen massive steps in this regard in the current year, 20% reduction in the length of reports. That's really great to see, but there are areas where improvements could be made around governance with compliance, CVs of directors and executive staff and photographs and so on. A lot around risk that could be reduced as well. So really progress has been made and we encourage you to continue with that. I thought I would just take a picture of the demo contents, and you can see here that their report essentially is covered in 55 pages. And then the financial statements and appendices are separate from the actual integrated report. So this is really nicely done. 55 pages, that's a great report. Now, some organizations would argue, well, we're much more complex than DEMO. You know, we're a bank or whatever. But I can point you in the direction of many large banks, global banks, that can do a report in 80 pages. So it can be done, and there's a lot of clutter that's in many of the reports that we see. And we urge you to continue to take that clutter out. Other aspects of conciseness is how you present the information using infographics, using simple language and so on. Those are very important elements in this conciseness principle. Then reliability and completeness. An integrated report should include all material matters, both positive and negative, in a balanced way and without material error. Well, without material error goes without saying. But if organizations only present positive information, immediately it should ring in alarm bells. And, you know, those negative issues that or challenges that face the organization come out into the marketplace and people learn about them. So if the organization suppresses them, then it only becomes more of a problem when they actually do come out. So really encourage organizations to look at issues in a balanced way so that they present both the positive and the negative aspects of it. Now, there are ways in which you can enhance the credibility of the report by looking at the quality assurance or describing the quality assurance that has been applied in making sure that there's a balanced report. And one of the best ways is actually for the board to express its responsibility for integrity of the integrated report. And here we have union assurance signed by the chairman and another director. Some organizations, the entire board will sign it. And that gives confidence to the reader of the report saying, well, if they're prepared to put their neck on the line, then they must have done some good work in making sure to the best of their ability that they're presenting a true and honest report. And then the final one is consistency and comparability. The information in integrated report should be presented on a basis that is consistent over time in a way that enables comparison with other organizations to the extent it is material to the organization's own ability to create value over time. National Savings Bank here just saying that there were no significant changes in the current year, so dealing with that. And then Lanka IOC here showing financial highlights over a 5-year period. I always like to see this kind of information because it tells you a lot about the organization, what the trends are, and so on. So this is good to see, but we would like to encourage organizations also to compare their performance with industry benchmarks. How are they doing in relation to the industry and so on? We don't see a lot of that within the reports, but we encourage you to seek these out and to disclose them as well. In South Africa, what we're also seeing these days is that in industries, some, for example, in the banking industry, the report will include information not only from their own organization, but their competitors as well, which is quite interesting to see. I'm not sure that Sri Lanka is ready to do that yet, but think about it. Some other key performance indicators here from John Keels, looking at occupancy, etc., looking across the 2017, 18, and 19, and also looking at their hotels, the city hotels versus the Sri Lanka resorts and the Maldivian resorts. So also helpful information helping to compare. So we've now move on to the fundamental concepts, and there are 2 of those, the capitals and value creation. Now, that's really about the whole report. It's not about any particular section of the report, and it's how they managed to get that information across. But I just want to highlight, as regards capitals, National Savings Bank, a really nice infographic here. And this is looking at each of their capitals, but it flows through their report, looking at how they define natural capital, what are the key challenges facing them, what are the opportunities around natural capital, what are their strategies to enhance the value of natural capital, what are the highlights for the year, and the scorecard, and then also what is the linkage to the other capitals and also the trade-offs. So really helpful information around the capitals, and we saw some really good reporting around capitals within Sri Lanka this year. And then finally, looking at value creation, and I've already shown excerpts from the DMO report, and I've talked about how the DMO report achieves value creation and the connectivity and so on. So set very nicely by the board, showing that the board is driving this value creation process, and then going on to look at how they've positioned for value creation, looking at their purpose, brand promise, also looking at how the stakeholders are involved, in the corner, the quality of the relationship with their different stakeholders, and then flowing through to their strategy. So, you know, they've really done it well, and I encourage everybody to look at their report. How they achieve this description of their value creation story is really good. So thank you very much indeed. I hope that has been of use to you. I think that the full report will be made available to everybody. I'm not sure if it'll be in a hard copy or soft copy, probably a soft copy area. I really hope that we will see a continuing improvement in reports. And it's not to say that reports are bad, because I think Sri Lanka does extremely well in the global context. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Professor Graham Terry. It was a very, very detailed description going through each and every stage of an integrated report. And the case studies, the performance, and what are the and the importance of the integrated report. So I will not go into more detail, but I just want to tell everyone that we are planning to, we were going to conduct a course on integrated reporting. So a lot of the matters that were really taken in this report would go into that. So I think I will like the support of Professor Graham to maybe enable us to make this really a live program where they will be able to go into it, and this will also help to better improve the reports that everyone is preparing. So now today, after the report, we have a panel discussion, but may I remind you also that you can send your questions either through chat or Q&A so that they can be answered. So if you have any areas that you need to more explanation or any comments that you have, you can send it to chat or Q&A. So please do that. Now for our panel, we have our moderator will be our Associate Professor Lakhmika Perera from Deakin University, where he is attached to the integrated reporting, the division of, or really in charge of the integrated reporting division of Deakin Australia, and they have close coordination with the IIRC. And he's also the current chair of the academic oversight body of the International Integrated Reporting Council. So,
Professor, can I just correct that? I'm the past chair, not we've handed
chair.
over to the
Right,
new committee members. Thank you.
Right. And also he was responsible because in the Deakin University, we had the deputy chair of the IIRC who was there, Mr. Stanhope, who was present. So he was also one of the key people, and Professor Lakhmika was able to do. Then on the panel, we also have Professor Samanthi Senaratna. I think she's done a lot of research work. I'm sure she will have very good comments to make. The Professor in Accounting of Department of Accounting of University of Sri Jayawardhanapura. Then we also have Mr. Suresh Gunaratne, as I said earlier, the award winner, maybe 6 times consecutively where they won the awards, and also that he was selected as one of the few people to do the inauguration into the new format of the IRC. So may I now invite our moderator, Associate Professor Lakhmika Perera, so that he can now take over and conduct the panel discussion.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor. In respect of time, I'll keep things very straightforward, and I will present a question for each of the candidates. I'll start off with the chair of the panel, Professor Ho. Sorry to put you on the spotlight, Professor. In terms of, you've gone through the entire process of analyzing all the companies that have applied for the awards this year. How do you see the effects of COVID-19 how do you see them affecting the previous annual reports or the IR reports, and how do you see that morphing and affecting or guiding the future IR reports to come?
Yeah. See, in this year's reporting, there were 2 batches of reports. Those reports that were prepared dated 31st of December 2019. will probably not be affected much by the COVID-19. But those that were subsequent, like 31st of March 2020, these are the companies that were significantly affected. What we saw is that there is a distinctive so-called calibration in the sense that companies that were affected by COVID-19 did report in their financial statements and give some projections concerning how the COVID-19 has affected their business. So in that sense that we see, therefore, the integrated thinking thought patterns actually applies into the context where companies were able to address the impact of COVID-19. For this year, 2021 report, it will be exciting because everyone will be impacted by COVID-19. And then we should be able to see how integrated reporting or thinking will permeate into all their reports, and we'll be able to compare apples with apples, oranges with oranges. All right. And this probably will be a litmus test to see how integrated reporting can become very useful in a crisis that affects the company's bottom line and top line, and in fact, all the 6 capitals significantly. Right. So we're excited about it. We saw a glimpse of the changes or a glimpse of the impact, but we hope to document a lot more this year.
Thank you very much, Professor. In other words, what you're saying is that, when you're talking about IR, it's about having a balanced report, the good, the bad, the ugly, and you're hoping to see this come out and also morph into integrated thinking a little bit more. So thank you very much for that viewpoint. My next question is to Suresh. As an award winner of the IR Awards, you've been one of the pilot project initiators in terms of the IR in 2013. How do you see the changes from 2013 to today, and what are the key things that you see, or what are the key highlights of the changes in the reports coming through those couple of years, and how do you see the changes going forward next year or the next 2-3 years? So what is the journey like in terms of, in a very summary format, what are the key elements that you feel have changed consistently throughout the years?
Thank you for that question. Actually, if we look back, if we go back to 2012, we had in 13 we had a framework, and in 2012 we knew a fair deal about integrated reporting is going to be. Let's come forward one more year to 2013. We have a very well articulated framework in our hands. But if you look at our reports in 2013, there was quite a big gap between the quality of the report and what is envisaged by the guideline. In fact, we were feeling it inside. So if we go back to the discussions that were taking place at that time, people refer to this always as a journey because there was such a gap, and it took, people felt that it will take a long time to fill that gap. So if I fast forward it to 2020 or 2019, I see, if I take our own report, I see that gap between the guideline and now has narrowed down a lot. In terms of understanding IR, and I think one is because of the importance that we are starting to give integrated thinking. In 2013, I think the thinking was more on reporting, but we all know without integrated thinking, we cannot conceptualize an integrated report. So what preparers do has changed leaps and bounds. If you compare 2012 with 2019. And also, as a preparer, I feel more with it, more confident, more on top of the process of integrated reporting. Our understanding is far, far better. But if you ask me whether we are there, I would say certainly no. When we spoke about, I don't know, at the framework launch also, something I said is I was trying to articulate, how a company should look at preparing an integrated report by talking about conceptualization and capturing what is in material and connecting and communicating. That is how I said it. But when I spoke about connecting, I said this is where we will need a lot of work to be done. And this is where technology is going to have to help us in time to come. Because, for example, when we talk of trade-offs, we can only, at the moment, a lot of us, I would say, can only talk about where the trade-offs take place. It will be kind of difficult for us to even give a good qualitative description in most of the trade-offs. So those things have to happen. But I think with academic research and models that will be built through qualitative through research, this will improve. But now looking back to our 2013 report and what it is now, we are at a place that we didn't think of when it was. Now today we are at a stage where we didn't think of even when we started in 2013. So what does it say? So now even today we can expect that that transformation to take place in time to come. So I would be very happy to be in 2025 or 27 and say, today we are at a place where we didn't even in 2020 we didn't even think of being.
Sure.
So that's how it is. We all know all types of reporting this. I mean, you to go to sustainability, all evolved over a period of time. But I'm very happy with the evolution that has happened and the subscription to the idea of integrated thinking. So if that is strong, if the subscription to the idea of integrated thinking is strong, integrated reporting has to follow. I think going forward, what may have to happen is the boards have to give due respect to integrated thinking and the impact that it can have the shareholder value. So this is what me personally, as a preparer of integrated reporting, I would like the management to be educated on those things. So I think overall, to answer your question, there had been a kind of a marked improvement, something that we did bargain for this soon. So I expect this trend, the line will continue, or it will be an upward curve, if at all, in time to come.
Thank you very much, Suresh. That's a very interesting and enlightening viewpoint. Now I'm going to take some of your viewpoints in terms of evolution and going forward. And Manil, are you there? Can you hear me well? Manil?
Yeah, Luftwick, I'm here.
Thank you, Manil. So I'm just taking Suresh's comments on the evolution. And Manil, you're one of the partners of one of the leading audit firms in Sri Lanka and also the president of CA Sri Lanka. What I want to ask you is, in terms of putting on your auditor's hat, a partner's hat, how do you see the future of IR assurance coming into play in the next couple of years in the Sri Lankan context? Is it happening at the moment in terms of the big four audit firms, or is it something that you're looking at in the future? Or what are your views on that?
To tell you the truth, Luftwick, I think there is some degree of assurance that are given on various statements. So like I think sustainability, so there are certain areas that they are giving certain degrees of assurance. Now, from an assurance point of view, providing assurance service is not the issue. Here the issue is, do we have a framework which can be benchmarked against in giving that assurance?
Sure.
So what I'm trying to say is, now when we give assurance on financial statements, we have a benchmark which is the accounting framework and accounting standards. So we give a true and true view on whether a set of financials are complying with the respective accounting standards. So it's a measurable thing, and you can give that. So now the question is, in integrated reporting, the information that is getting reported, does it have a framework under which it is prepared? And then is that framework auditable? So that's where it is at the moment, and sometimes the difficulties come in determining those audits. That is why now I think there is a push by even the international accounting standards board to go into this non-financial information, and how do you create a framework around giving this non-financial information, and how do you get consistency in that is something that is being looked at now. These are happening at the moment. So until such time you come up with a framework, you are not going to get a consistent output.
Yeah.
Otherwise, each person will start developing a framework. The framework will be explained in the financials. So the auditor will audit against that framework, but that framework with another company might be different.
Sure. Thank you for that, Manil. So you might be happy to hear that I think there is some developments happening at the International Auditing and Assurance Standards Board in relation to this. But again, I think that's a little bit into the future that's going to happen. But definitely would be interested in looking at this space. And I think that's something that we can look at in the future. Thank you very much, Manil. And I would like to ask the next question from Samanthi as an academic. Now, you've heard Manil and Suresh talk about the future of where the reporting is going from a demo perspective and also in terms of the assurance perspective. As from an academic perspective, how do you see these the assurance aspect of it and also the trends in terms of a positivist view of how the direction of integrated reporting is moving from an academic lens and also from a normative perspective? Where would you like to see it go, and what is the gap between the two from the positivist viewpoint to a normative viewpoint?
Right. Thank you, Lakmika. Regarding this reporting process, what I would like to say is, so I have been involved with this CMA integrated reporting competition right from the beginning. So at the initial stage, we saw many companies were trying to superficially present their activities in terms of the 6 capital model. But over time, we saw that they have understood it, the importance of reporting their performance based on a 6 capital model. So that is an indication that manifests the fact that they have understood their value creation story, and nothing but that value creation story is reported through an integrated report. So in that perspective, I would say this is there are few things that we need to consider in this process. One thing, how do the management, how would the top management of the company perceive this? So that matters a lot in this whole process. Even we did a research on that aspect, which will be published very soon. So that integrated thinking of the CEO will impact on the way then organization is looking at the value creation of the organization, whether they consider that from a broad perspective or from a business case perspective. So that therefore it is not only you prepare a report, but how the internally the organization would be transforming its operations, its functions, and the connectivity that they are going to improve that, and how would you bring that into the boardroom for the decision making of the organization. I think this assurance perspective will also be related with that. So you now, like the financial audits and the financial statements which are being audited, so in the future there will be a greater demand for these value drivers, the value creation that the company is reporting through its integrated reports to be assured. But that assurance can happen in different ways, in my opinion. One is this external assurance that the firms could do. So in that external assurance process, sometimes it will be different to this because there are many aspects here. At the moment, it is a limited assurance that is being done on sustainability dimension. So sometimes you will have to have different groups of people coming into that team to assure with different expertise. May not be only accounting people, because there are natural capital and so many other aspects which would require different expertise. Or sometimes it is a challenge for the accounting profession to respond, right? Even the skill set we may have to our competencies, we will have to think differently in that context. So certainly there will be some demand for external assurance, but it is not only that it is coming from the outside, but internally within the organization, how would you assure these statements? So like the internal auditing function that we do for mainly in relation to financial aspects, we will have to broaden that, I think. So that even to respond to the external assurance mechanisms, we will have to strengthen on the internal assurance within the organization. Therefore, this internal assurance, I would say, could be connected with the risk management processes of the company, because your value depends on the opportunities and risk that the entity is facing. Now, we talk so much about COVID-19 and its implications, and how the companies have responded to that, and how the companies will be responding to that. Therefore, this whole assurance perspective, we may have to look at from the broader risk management strategies of the organization as well. So for me, I think if I talk from an academic perspective, that is what you really want me to do. So I think we have to look at this big picture, the connectivity. Initially, the companies were preparing a report. They were trying to adopt a new reporting model. So they had some incentives to do that. But what has happened over time is that new reporting model has brought a change within the organization. So they have been made to think differently and act differently. And now that is why today we see even a tendency to report on SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. It's not just value creation, but responsible value creation. So the assurance, therefore there is a transformation, change. So the assurance should also respond to that change. So it is internal, externally, as well as internally, that transformation will have to happen in the organization. And that will create a big challenge for the accounting profession as well. So the profession should respond to this change.
That's a very good point, Professor Samanthi. Many instances we have seen a situation where the accounting profession may have not taken the opportunity, and therefore other professions have come into that void and taken that opportunity and moved on. And there are some instances that have happened in the past. So that's a very valid point where the profession should be involved and embracing the concept of IR very closely. So thank you so much for that viewpoint. Next question would be to Henayaka. I'm going to give this question, Henayaka, from a perspective of your role in SAFA. So as a Vice President of SAFA, what are your viewpoints in terms of Sri Lanka contributing to the broader South Asian Federation of Accountants in terms of know-how and the knowledge, because of the fact that we are one of the pioneers in that region, Sri Lanka, as a pioneer in the region? What are the takeaways that you can give SAFA in terms of the lessons learned from Sri Lankan context?
Thank you, Professor. If I just start with our own country, I mean, in the context of Sri Lanka, we have taken measures to take the message that is the importance of integrated reporting across almost all industries through the competition within a very short period of time. I would say last 5-year period of time. So our understanding is that almost all companies in Sri Lanka have taken a lot of efforts to improve the reports in terms of almost all areas. And it was evident at the last competition. If you look back and if you go through all these reports, maybe 2017-18, we were not able to see that kind of improvement. Today, even though still there is a gap, as mentioned by other panelists, I would say that we have done well. So again, if I talk about in the country of Sri Lanka, with that note, with the introduction of a new program, as mentioned by our president, Professor Wattavala, we will be able to really improve the integrated reporting further this year. So if I answer your specific question as far as the SAFA is concerned, right now there is no separate competition as such for integrated reporting. What we do is last so many years, more than 2 decades, we are having the awards for annual reports. So even that last 5 years, they also introduced a separate segment for integrated reporting. But at the moment, I would say even today we are having the meeting in the evening, and we are going to review the checklist of the annual report to see to what extent we can improve, or rather to what extent we can improve the reporting in terms of integrated reporting. So that is where we stand right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nayaka. Graham, last but not least, my question to you is on the updates to the model. I've actually gone through the updates, and while they are subtle in terms of the changes, it can be considered as a minor revision to the framework, but the implications of it seem to be far more significant. So what are your thoughts on the actual implications of these minor changes, and how would it impact, or what are the implications for Sri Lankan companies going forward this year and beyond?
Excuse me. Well, yeah, as you say, the changes are minor, or they appear to be minor. But I think particularly around the business model, it's tightening up understanding of the business model. I personally think that there's still a lot of work necessary on the business model. I don't think it's achieved what is needed by organizations, I think that is something that will happen, and I also understand that there will be further changes to the framework in the future, but probably not for I guess a few years. But maybe Suresh should comment on that. But I think that the framework as such has worked pretty well up until now, and it needed a few tweaks. Things like adding in the purpose, I think, is also a step forward. Also, some of the examples that have been included now help to clarify it. I think most of the changes were around clarifying understanding of the framework and how it's implemented, rather than trying to make any specific changes to that framework. Because I think if one does review the framework and make changes, it's going to be quite an exercise, a global exercise to achieve that. So, I think that how I read it is that the IIRC is saying the framework seems to be working very well at the moment. We're also we're in a situation where there's merging with some other organizations, and there could be quite a few changes going into the future as a result of that, having standards for sustainability and so on. So certainly this revision doesn't rock the boat as such. It just clarifies, I think, a lot of what the intention behind the original framework was, which I think is a good thing.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Graham. Now, I've got one last overarching question for Professor Wattavala. Professor, now you've been, as CMA Sri Lanka has been a pioneer in IR in Sri Lanka for the last couple of years. And also, in terms of going forward, the importance of management accounting and its link to IR is very strong. And this was highlighted by even the Deputy Chair of the IRC, John Stanhope. He also mentioned the importance and the relevance of management accounting in integrated reporting, while not diminishing the importance of financial accounting. He stated that management accounting has a very close link to integrated reporting. So putting all these things together that we heard from all the other panel members, what are your views and the role of management accounting going forward in the next 3 to 5 years? How do you see management accounting evolving to support the journey of IR?
Thank you, Professor Lakmika. I think you touched on a very, very important area, because CMA, as the National Professional Management Accounting Body, which is also incorporated by an Act of Parliament, we feel that the management accounting profession is based on the two areas, that is both on the financial and non-financial. So that's why the management accounting profession has to play a very major role, because especially on the non-financial areas that come in, which all this time was not very much looked into. And today, that is one of the reasons why the value creation has come about with these non-financial elements that are coming in. So now even we are giving our students the the preparations that we are doing. So as I said, in the syllabus where we are covering this, plus also for the qualified members, where now we were just discussing about this, doing this special course on the integrated reporting. So that's another area which will enable to get the people ready for this sort of exercise. And I think today a lot of them are realizing that we need to look at value creation. I'm sure Professor Samanthi also must be aware, not only in financial terms, but from the universities itself. What is the value created, because the government is dumping so much of money in the state sector. So what we now find is that although the public is wanting that this value creation should be there, the benefits should come to them, it is not there. So which means that we have to put in place the management accounting concepts, and also have more qualified accountants. Of course, the private sector is having it, but I think this has to go to the public sector. If the people are really going to get this benefit of the integrated reporting, it has to go to the public sector. Even currently, with the problem of our what we are having, the getting the vaccine. Now, even there, that how it is going to be monitored. So all these are really connected, and which all come on our the integrated reporting framework that we are looking at. So I feel that this is also there. I think Mr. Raman is one of the people who are really also promoting this concept. And we will also need your support, because I know Professor Ho, maybe for you from the Australian side, then Professor Graham and Professor Samanthi, all of them have been promoting, and that we can get their support also to take this further, because that's very, very essential. And the private sector also realizing the need as to the role that the management accountant can play. So I feel that this question is really relevant, but we have to put things together and see how we can take it forward, because the competition, there is a lot of interest. But in addition to that, we need to see how this real value creation would come in, and the systems could be done. So that's what I really feel, that that this is something that we have continued. Even in the case of COVID, we would have postponed it, but we thought that even in COVID, that this value will be something that would be realized. So thank you, Professor Lakmika. I think you have done a very, very excellent job. But I don't know whether you like to give a last round to everyone, just maybe 2-3 minutes just to say what they have.
Absolutely. I'm happy to call in for any comments. Also, there are 2 comments/questions from the participants. There are 2 questions by Risley. Once the participants have given their closing remarks, I'm happy to take on those questions in a very quick way, given the timing. So, Professor Ho, over to you first.
Thank you very much. I think the progress will continue, and I look forward actually to this year when for the first time the integrated reporting will be used to address a global phenomenon, right, that will affect the bottom line, the top line, and all the 6 capitals. So I would like to see the integrated thinking actually coming into practice, right? I look forward to looking at all the reports for this coming round. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Ho. Suresh, do you have any further remarks?
Yeah, just a couple of things. I think this is for the boardroom or the top management. I think it's if our job is to create value for the shareholders, we need to understand that it can be done by, now if you look at any business model, it says that it can be done by creating value through other capitals as well. Without the other capital, financial capital is of no use. So if that is the case, I think the top management attention has to come about managing other capitals. Just because we don't have procedures and technology to manage those doesn't mean that they don't have to be managed. We need to discover those. So that is one point. I would like to add something to what Professor Watawala was saying about the management accountant's role. So if you take in our company, we have a financial accountant and a management accountant. Financial accountant's scope is accounting, treasury, on the financial side, accounting and financial management. Then taxation also is part of that. So there you are looking at the current operations or the historical side. The management, our management accountant's job is to guide the company towards our corporate objectives. So if you are guiding the company towards the corporate objectives, the material that is there for a management accountant is about what we use for integrated reporting. In a nutshell, the management accountant's job is to guide the company on its short, medium, and long-term objectives, meaning to align the cost structures to it, advise the management with regard to the margins, and so on. So the material that we use in management accounting and material that we use in integrated reporting, I believe there is some connection. Similarly, for a financial accountant also, where the financial capital is concerned, there is a part to be played by that person, because how the company is going to be funded, where the financial capital is going to come from. So when it comes to the non-monetized side of the capitals, the management accountant's role is, we are talking of stakeholders. So managing the stakeholders, their costs and their satisfaction and all that, I think that is part of management accounting. Because if I tell in a nutshell, the financial accountants side will come into integrated reporting through financial capital and maybe manufactured capital. The management accountants side will come from the other capitals.
Yeah, of course.
So then it's a combination of all these that will be required to tell our value creation story. So that's how I look at it.
Thank you very much, Suresh. That's a very good point. Next, I would like to invite Professor Samanthi to give a very quick closing statement.
Yes, thank you, Luftwick, again. I think integrated reporting is a journey. For any company, it is a journey. So over the period, they will learn how to narrate their value creation story, and also what has to be changed within the organization, in this journey. It's not just reporting, but what is the change? What was the transformation that had gone in the organization to generate value as well as for responsible value creation? So even for a researcher, from the first paper that I published on integrated reporting, on diffusion of integrated reporting, I see there is a journey that had gone. I have also gone in a journey, and that journey will not end. So it will continue. Similarly, for a company, that journey will continue. And other thing, I think Professor Watawala will not get offended with me for saying this. Financial accounting, management accounting, that sort of a classification also, I feel that is diminishing, I think. Rather, we have to look at both these parties in a holistic way. So the integrated reporting makes the accounting profession to think in a holistic manner, because all these people are finally contributing towards the value creation. Therefore, rather than being in different groupings, I would think they have to come together and see this broad perspective of connectivity in the value creation, and that holistic thinking needs to be developed by the accounting professionals as a whole. So then only we can reach the target. Thank you,
Thank you,
Lak.
Professor Samanthi. I think that's coming from a normative perspective, so we all appreciate that from that normative perspective. Mr. Hennaka, do you have any last comments?
Yeah, I mean, if I take in the context of SAFA, really there are new member bodies admitted to SAFA from Afghanistan and Maldives. So, and it is essential for us to educate and make aware of them the importance of integrated reporting. So that is the task that we will have in the future. And if I take Nepal also, we have the chartered body. So they also yet to commence the integrated reporting. So we need to educate and make them aware of the importance of integrated reporting. Thank you.
Thank you, Hennaka. Last but not least, Graham, any closing remarks?
Just to say that, I think that I was very encouraged by the quality of reports this year. I think the fact that we saw a lot of focus on the future, or more focus on the future, and the connectivity, I think that things are really moving, because to be able to produce a report that has that quality, you need to have some integrated thinking in the organization. So I think things are moving really nicely at the moment in Sri Lanka. I think the management accountants have a very important role to play in driving that. And I think if we could encourage more public sector organizations to get involved, that would really be great, because that's where a large portion of value is actually meant to be delivered. So, I think I'm very encouraged with what is happening in Sri Lanka at the moment. But I think that the accountants across the board need to be working hard to drive this and to show people what the value is, and the value of integrated thinking and so on. So, but I'm encouraged, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Professor Graham. And my apologies as the chair of this session that we are 15 minutes over the time frame, but I do apologize. And over to you, Professor Watawala, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Latmika. I think, as you say, time is short, so I will just briefly thank everyone. Especially, I think I must thank Professor Graham Terry, because I know that you have done a tremendous amount of work, not only for this presentation, but over the years. But this presentation, I think, maybe was far more superior, because like what you said, that the reporting has improved on a yearly basis. You were able to really look at all the good areas that have taken place, and some of the companies that were highlighted, which is very good. And as I said, let's take this further and see how we can maybe develop certain case studies. I'm sure Professor Samanthi is there to help us in this matter. So once again, Professor Graham, thank you very much for this very extensive work that you have done. And we always appreciate the good work that you have done for us. Unfortunately, if you were in Sri Lanka, I would have presented you a pack of tea, but unfortunately, we are far away. But once things are okay, we'll be able to see each other, and where you can visit us. Then also I must thank Professor Ho. I had to go uh, for another meeting because he's someone who is always busy because he has been really helping us in always in any matter that is there as a chairman of the panel of judges, a major role that he has played, and I must thank him for all his support. Then our moderator today, Professor Lakshmika, because he's involved very, very closely with integrated reporting and integrated reporting IR center at the Deakin University. And I know with the deputy chair also being in Australia that he will have a lot of work to assist them. And let me once again thank you for the excellent way that you conducted the moderation, although I was maybe I had to tell you maybe at the last minute that this is your job, but I knew that that would be no problem for you because you are able to do it without any problem. There is something that is already there. Then Professor Samanthi, I think Professor Samanthi is one who is very quietly doing very many things for integrated reporting. I know now she's involved with the World Bank study and doing this program, doing a detailed study, and we are also happy that we've been able to assist her in this. And I'm sure that once this report also comes out, that we were able to do some work, because this time, as you know, we invited two important people for our awards ceremony. One is the chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission. The other one is the Director General of the Colombo Stock Exchange, because we need their support to take it forward. So I have suggested to them that they at least make it not a compulsory thing, but at least a best practice, which they can easily do. So that would be a good start. And I know that if Professor Graham knows that after making it mandatory, how well it has worked in South Africa. So if we can make it a best practice, I'm sure it will help a great deal. Then also I must thank Mr. Suresh Kunratna, because he's been always supporting us, and I know that he made it a special effort to come today. But I'm sure that we are all very happy because he is one of the pioneers in this area of integrated reporting, and his excellence is shown by his winning the award for the 6 years. So, and also the IIRC had recognized the good work that they have doing, and he was one of those present at the inauguration and made a presentation there. So let me thank Suresh for all the good work he has done, the support he has given us, and also for taking IIRC to the next level. Then also our own Vice President, Mr. Hennayaka, because he has a major role in SAFA. And as he said, I think SAFA has to maybe look at it. He said he's going to attend the meeting, so maybe he can tell more things about what we have done and how the SAFA can maybe take a bigger role, because although we are looking at SAFA, the only one or two countries have been really doing it very well. One, of course, is Sri Lanka. Other one is Bangladesh, but the others are still not doing it on a big scale. So we need, of course, India is there, but still they are not doing it on a very, very large scale. Few of the major companies are doing it, like Tata's, but the others are still not going into it. Then, of course, Pakistan is another country where they will have to go into it. And of course, we have the other countries like Nepal and others. But these main countries where we can support them, and I think that might be an area that we can look at it, not only from our side, but also where Chartered can also play a role in this. And as mentioned by Professor Samanthi, maybe it's a long way ahead, maybe to get together, but I suppose two heads can maybe make a bigger contribution rather than one head. So it might be that we may be working in different ways to help the profession. So also let me thank all our participants who have been there, and the companies. But I would like to maybe follow this up, because we have evaluators, some of them who attended. I think Professor Graham, last time we did a workshop with them. Certainly we can maybe follow up with that one. Plus, we are working on this course that we are planning to conduct. I'm sure we can get the support of all our judges who are here, Professor Graham, our Professor Lakmika, Professor Samanthi, all of them, and Professor Ho, so that will be not only a local one, but maybe it will also have the international flavor, which a lot of them are looking at. So with those remarks, let me thank everyone. Of course, Jinandi is not here. I think she's been coordinating most of these activities in our IR committee and helping us. Then also all our evaluators who've been doing a major role. And we will also this time take in a few more who can be trained and then work with us. So let me thank everyone, and I wish you all the very best and look forward to take forward the integrated reporting, not only in the private sector, but also to the public sector, and make a big change in the reporting of the companies and government institutions in Sri Lanka. Thank you and all the very best. We need to take a photograph. If you can kindly maybe unmute your video and we can take a photograph. Just wait for a few minutes here. I think all are not there, but I don't know whether we can put the view and gallery view. Okay. Right. Thank you very much, and all the very best.
Thank you very much, Prof.
Thank you.
you
Thank
very
you, Professor.
much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well,
Bye.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Professor.
Graham.
Bye.
Thank you very
Bye.
much.
Bye.
You have a nice library. I can see a nice library there. We will give this to all our participants, plus also we will get a few copies printed, which we might be useful for us. Okay. Right. Thanks.
thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Okay, then. Bye. So
Thank
we'll
you,
let-
Thank you, Professor Samanthi.
Right.
Thank you.